Welcome to the XP Team USA podcast. We're digging the plugs and pinpointing the topics you want to hear.
And now, here's your hosts, Dave Kimball and Grant Hansen.
This show is brought to you by XP Metal Detectors. XP Metal Detectors is a high-end, innovative metal detector company with great machines and great pinpointers. For more information, go to xpmetaldetectors.com. For a dealer near you, try a Google search or go to xpdeus-usa.com. Hello and welcome to the XP Team USA podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kimball, coming to you from Central Oklahoma, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Grant Hansen, coming to you from New Jersey. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing pretty good. The weather's been rainy and stormy. Got a lot of tornado warnings and stuff like that coming through. So
yeah, we've had some on and off weather here. No tornadoes, of course, but rain, sun, cold, warm. But I'm hoping it starts to even out and I can get out more consistently. Yeah, I recently got out at a house I've pounded a bunch of times. It was built in 1793, and I got a good signal on my second hole. And I'm taking it out, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's a silver thimble. I've got an old silver thimble, so I didn't mess with it too much. But then later on, when I cleaned it, it was not a silver thimble. It was just a plated cosmetics cap. And I've got it on film, and my excitement around it. I'd be interested in the chat to see if anyone is interested in seeing the video behind that. Usually I try to post just some good finds, but this might be entertaining. I don't know.
yeah, you could do the little sound effects. Wah, wah, wah.
Right, exactly. I think it's probably the most real kind of experience that many people see.
Yeah. I'm sure it happens a lot. I've found tokens that just look like some big silver coin, and I get all excited, and it's like some aluminum.
Right. One of those Hess or Shell gas station ones. Yeah, and they sound beautiful. So I know you're going to be getting out for a few days with Detecting the Heartland, right? That's coming up.
That's right. I'll be leaving here Friday the 10th and get there, and they're going to have a dinner Friday night, and Saturday all day they're going to be having the hunts. We'll have a booth set up out there. We'll be having giveaways. We'll give away pinpointer. We'll be giving away an ORX. We'll have a bunch of tokens buried everywhere, so people would have multiple chances to win an ORX. We'll have contests running, and plus we'll be doing podcasting on while we're there. So it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I'm jealous that you guys are all going. It's going to be a great experience, and especially for those who've never seen an ORX, they'll be able to check it out and take a test run with it.
That's right. Like you said, we'll have an ORX and an XP Deus out there for you to test drive. You can come out and check it out, ask us questions about anything, and we're going to try to do a live podcast while we're out there. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be part of that, even if virtually, and hear how everything's going and chat with everybody. I think it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, we're going to have our XP Team USA captain, Dave Dindentelli, out there. We're going to have XP Sonia. We're going to have RC Dunn, our TV producer, and we're going to have the Junkman Tim Glick and me as well. And we're going to get around and talk to a few people out there at the hunt also and get them on the show. So it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, it seems like it's a great group just by the Facebook group chat and all the interactions. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic time. And if you get any videos of RC doing the pinpointer night hunt, please share them with me.
All right. And today we'll be talking to Mary Shafer. Mary Shafer is an author, and she wrote a few interesting books. And plus, she's a great metal detectorist. One of the more popular books she wrote was called Metal Detecting for Beginners, 101 Things I Wish I'd Known When I Started. And we'll be giving that book away in the chat. So tell them how they can win, Grant.
Sure. So we're going to do this through the podcast chat tonight. We've picked a number between 1 and 100. So just pick a number and put it in the chat, and then whoever gets it closest will win, and we'll announce the winner at the end of the show. And again, they will get an autographed copy of Metal Detecting 101 by Mary Shafer.
All right. Yeah, and be watching the chat because we'll announce it in the chat.
Yep. And I'm really looking forward to speaking with Mary. She's very interesting. obviously with metal detecting, but she's currently living the mobile lifestyle through an RV, and she's just a very interesting person.
Yeah, not only will we be talking with Mary Shafer today, but we will also be talking to Don Botting with Detecting Doodads.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him. I've got a couple of his products, from one of the first, I think, was his pinpointer tether. I've got the Deus charger clip. I've also got the Deus remote tether. Really neat stuff, and very creative and very practical.
Yeah, and I recently got their new headphones, and I really like them. They turn your WS4s into a full set headphones, and they have a little jack in there where you could plug a plug in there and plug it into any machine. So yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah, really cool. I'm excited to speak with him. All right, let's chat with Don Botting.
All right, we'll be back with Don Botting. XP Metal Detectors now introduces the new X35 search coils. Designed around a brand new electronic advances, these new high-performance and versatile coils will allow you to choose from a wide range of frequencies, ranging from 3.7 kHz to 27.7 kHz. In total, there are 35 available frequencies based around 5 main frequencies that are quickly accessible. A new boost mode is now an option on frequencies 3.7 kHz to 4.4 kHz and can significantly increase detection depth on highly conductive targets such as large masses and large silver coins. The new X35 search coils will now be available as option as the same price as the previous coils, and also now will be standard with the brand new Deus. So get your X35 today. We'd like to welcome Don Botting to our show. Don comes to us from Texas and is the owner of Detecting Doodads. Welcome to the show, Don.
Thank you, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Don. As a owner of a few Detecting Doodads products, I'm very excited to speak with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, work life, family life, just so that our listeners can get to know you more?
Sure. I've been detecting on and off for many years. Started in the 70s with a Heath kit and went away from the hobby and then came back about 10 years ago. I live in Magnolia, which is just north of Houston. I have 2 grown kids and married 17 years. I have a horse, donkeys, cats, dogs. We have a whole little
nice,
farm here.
Nice menagerie.
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned you started a while back with a Heath kit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, my Lord, yes. We used to, back in the day, if you wanted something electronic, you had to build it yourself. So Heath kit, I don't know, for people that don't know, was a mail order deal. If you wanted to build a radio, you go through the catalog, and they'd send you a box full of transistors and wire, and you'd have to put it together yourself. I talked my dad into a GB340 they had, and it was terrible. We had fun building it, and going out in the yard and finding, I think I found a nail, but it was pretty bad. But, and you're a little kid, you had visions of flights of fancy and treasure, and then, you build it and it couldn't find a...
I still have those visions of fancy about finding treasures.
Yeah, and that's true today, too. A lot of people don't know, get into it thinking it's going to be just gold and jewelry, and it doesn't happen, and they lose patience and get out of it. So, yeah, I've come and gone from it. But as I aged, I got interested in history and the Civil War and Rev War and all the history and research, and the advent of the internet allows you to, identify things and cooperate with people. It's really interesting hobby. I love it.
So how has your detecting changed over the years as you've gotten more experience and, of course, as technology has advanced?
Well, I guess like everyone else, I started, in the parks and jewelry. I'm from Galveston County, so we had the beaches and, that's fun. But I don't know, once the history bug bites you, either it does or it doesn't. I know guys that just love the beach, and that's what they do. I like the beach, but if I had a choice, I'd rather be, rubbing elbows with snakes and spiders deep in the woods looking for some crazy relic. Technology advances, it's interesting to go back to those places. You were years ago with a piece of new technology, a new coil, a new this or that, and the place comes alive again. That's what keeps me going.
You have an experience as an engineer and an inventor. What kinds of things outside of detecting products have you invented?
Well, I'm in the oil and gas industry, being from Texas, so a lot of mechanical stuff for the oil and gas industry. There's other things too. I don't know, I guess about 20 years ago, I was looking for a hobby, and I love what I do so much. So I've always been into machining and designing parts, and so I just kind of made my career my hobby, I guess. Mm-hmm. Kind of odd, but I just love inventing or improving anything. And that's what spawned the Detecting Doodads, the advent of 3D printing, and we go from an idea of an improvement to a prototype part to a finished part in a matter of hours. And that's real neat. So I could do, customization of my products and change my products to fit your needs. And I get a big enjoyment out of that. If someone has a problem, being able to solve it. A lot of people have great ideas, just don't have the experience and know-how how to do that.
Yeah.
That's where I come in.
Yeah. And did you expect Detecting Doodads to take off as a business, or were you just kind of, hey, I'm going to make a cool product to help fit some need?
It all started for myself, right? I had a 3D printer, it started with the pinpointer. We were on a trip in Virginia, and I had a new pinpointer, and someone on that trip lost their pinpointer, the old Black Garrett. You've had that on your belt. So I said, well, what can we do to alleviate that? So I said, heck, I have a 3D printer, see what we'd come up with. 20 minutes later, I had a tether that was brightly colored. So if you did lose it, you could see it. Because people were wrapping, colored duct tape and all kinds of things to help them. Yeah. And then I distinctly remember on a drive home from my job, I had lost I carry a jeweler's loop with me because my eyes aren't the best anymore. And so if I can, pull a target out of the hole and get my jeweler's loop, identify a coin or some marking. But I'd lost it. And I said, man, what can I do there? So on the drive home, it was 20 minutes. I said, well, I'm going to put a magnifying glass on top of the tether right where it needs to be. And so that was the first product. It's a tether. It goes on pinpointers of various manufacturers. And then you can have the top customized with your name or number. Be in 3D printing, it doesn't matter. It's just a program that you run. So I can offer it in virtually any color you can imagine, any text customization. So that was the first. And like I said, I did it for myself, and then people in the field would see it and, oh, that's cool. How do I get one? And then the other ideas just come from people, someone that used AT Pro said, I wish this thing had a backlight. Is there anything you could do? So yeah, I make this little product that screws onto the control box and lights up your controller. Same thing with the T2. And then we get into the XP stuff. XP is an excellent machine. I love it. But there's been a lot of people saying, I bumped my control box, I guess, and I lost my control box. And we spent 10 hours looking for it and, never found it. So I did a tether for that, and then people started saying, well, with the charge clip, if you can improve that, make it more robust. So we came out with a charge clip, and but just all kinds of different things, camera mounts and anything. And again, if someone has an idea, float it by me, and I'll design it up and print it and give it to you and let you try it out, and if it works, then it goes up on the web. And a lot of custom one-offs, right? Like, handicapped or people with special needs and that sort of thing, how to hold equipment, So I love solving those kind of problems.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you got accessories for a variety of detecting brands, including XP. What is the process behind the design and manufacturing a 3D printed product?
Well, sometimes, so I don't have, every machine. I wish I did. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like if someone wants something for Mind Lab CTX, right? If you looked at the camera mount, it's an odd shaped shaft. So I have friends who either have them or the local dealers. Wayne over there detecting stuff in Houston, and I go over there with my measuring tools and measure what we need up and then make the part and off you go. So it's a lot of design work, reverse engineering things with micrometers, measuring tools, and then using 3D CAD to model it up. And then another piece of software to take that three-dimensional solid model and turn it into what we call G-code to make the printer work. Once that's done, you can just run it over and over and over again. So
yeah, I mean, super, super interesting. And if anyone's interested in seeing what that's like, you actually have a bunch of videos on your website that people can look at, right? Sure.
If you go to the website or YouTube, just look up Detecting Doodads. I've posted a lot in the past. I'm about to start again. If you order something, when your order's printing, you'll be sent a link to a live webcam so you can see it printing.
Oh,
something
cool.
I did last year and just kind of went away from that because I didn't get a lot of feedback for it, but I'm going to launch that again.
So I imagine you made a pretty good, significant investment in your company. After all, 3D printers are not very cheap, right?
You'd be surprised when I got the first printer. Wow, that's 6, 7, 8 years ago. Several thousands of dollars. Now the printers are all copied out of China. They're good quality, but the printer it cost $4,000 8 years ago. Now it costs $400.
Right.
So
wow,
it's come way, way down. Now those printers, I wouldn't say they're good beginner printers because you're constantly tweaking the process, and you have to know, right, if I increase the temperature to the extruder or increase the heated base plate, we get shrinkage rates. Even between different colors, you get different shrinkage rates. So it's fun, but it's quite a steep learning curve to get it really dialed in.
And some of those printers that you get nowadays, you have to pretty much modify right off the bat, right out of the box. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. So, everyone, it's kind of a neat community. It's kind of like the detecting community. Everyone participates in it. And so if I know, everyone's saying, hey, this printer's really cool, but when you get it, you got to modify this, do that, tweak that. Mm-hmm. So then it kind of becomes a standard thing. So, yeah, there's a lot of tweaking to it. But once you do it over and over, like anything else, right, it's easy.
So are you working on anything right now that hasn't made it into production and that we don't see on the website?
Actually, not really. I'm kind of just kind of doing steady production now. I got 6 printers, 4 to 6 running all the time on standard stuff. It's funny to see, and I never, like I said, never got into it for business. I don't make a gazillion bucks. I still have to have a job, but it's fun to see what trends, right? Sometimes it's the pinpointer tether. Sometimes it's XP stuff. It just kind of goes. That's the way it goes. So I don't carry a lot of stock. I can make them pretty quick. So once I get the order, I'll print. I'm usually just printing to order. A lot of my stuff is customized, right? So if you have an XP control tether, a lot of people like to put their name or phone number on that. So of course I got to make that, which I could do. It's about a 5-minute process to customize it in the software, and the runtime on one of those is about 30 minutes. So
that's pretty much like a full-time job, keeping those printers running full-time.
Yeah, and I do struggle with that because, like I said, I do have a full-time job that takes me out of town, travel. So I do get behind, but I'll try to, keep people posted of what's going on.
I knew a guy who made parts for drones, and he was saying that his printers were running constantly, and it was like having a baby. Him and his wife would have to get up in the middle of the night and change and stuff. And
yeah, it is. They run, pretty much unattended. So I run them, before I go to sleep, I'll crank them up. And sometimes you do. You hear weird things in the middle of the night, you go, and it's just like a bird's nest of melted plastic because something went wrong.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the old days of rendering a video where now, you can just stream live live, but back then, like if I wanted to render a video, it would take 15 to 17 hours. I'd have to do it overnight, and then sometimes I'd wake up just only to see that it's crashed and it didn't finish.
Hours. Wow.
Yeah.
We'll be back right after this with Don Botting. XP has introduced its new ORX machine, a high-end machine at a mid-range price. The ORX has 4 factory preset programs, 2 gold, 2 coins, also 2 user programs. The ORX comes with a high-frequency coil and is compatible with the X35 coils. The ORX is now available in the USA. And we're back with Don Botting. So what kind of detecting do you prefer? Farm, fields, or old homes, what sites, or woods?
Yeah, I love the woods. I just love being in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my favorite. But anything relic-wise, I'm there. It's farm fields or plantation homes. But my preference would be, somewhere in the woods where you're just, out there.
So, and you found some really cool stuff. Can you tell us about your 1806 Real and the site you found it on?
Yeah, so that being in Texas, Texas didn't have a lot of Civil War stuff. That camps, there wasn't any battles per se. So I go back further in my quest for the last 6 years. The big thing in Texas was a republic at one time. We were not a state and we were not a country. We were kind of our own thing. And that happened in 1836 when we defeated Santa Anna, who came out of Mexico. The Spanish owned this territory, and they had to let people settle in here, let Americans come down and settle. But then the Americans didn't like the taxation and all this stuff, so we revolted. And a battle of San Jacinto happened, where the Mexicans came, of course, and defeated us. And then about 2 weeks later, the Battle of San Jacinto was where we captured General Santa Anna, and we became a republic. So just a matter of a few weeks, right? We got our butt whipped at the Alamo, and then we snuck up on them and won. Very enthralled of what happened in between those 2 weeks and the retreat from the Alamo to San Jacinto, which is down towards Pasadena, Texas, or South Houston. And it's pretty well documented. This is where they were, and this is what they camped. Well, I've searched for this for 6 years, and a couple of years ago I found the first proof that I was on the trail. I found a beautiful Republic of Texas Army button. And so I've been searching, and sure enough, this year, where I thought they camped at a very specific date, because the records are they only camped there one day, and I found 1806 Spanish Real that was holed. We found some Federal Navy buttons and a belt tip, wingtip that was eventually authenticated at the Alamo as being, that was from Sam Houston's troops. So,
wow.
Yeah, just those kind of things are really, right, that's just really, really special to me. When you have a goal like that, right, and you can prove history like that is really neat.
Texas has a lot of cool history to it. And what about the story behind that 1836 cap bust dime that you found?
Okay, so that was real recent on a site I've been trying to do research and get on. It was a prisoner of war camp in this general area that the Confederates housed all the Union troops they captured in Galveston. And this is very far away from Galveston. And when people say there's a prisoner of war camp here, my God, you imagine walking from Galveston, I don't know, it must be 90 to 100 miles. But that's where they housed them. And there were some camps and things there. And so I'm just now getting into that. The first trip I was there, it was a 1835 cap bust dime and some other real cool Civil War relic type thing. So again, it's just putting your research in, being persistent, and it eventually pays off.
Yeah, and you've also found an 1853 Prussian military buckle, and you found it in a field store parking lot.
Yeah, so those are the other finds that you just scratch your head. there's no rhyme, no reason, right? You can't make any sense of it. It was an old farm field / parking lot to an old grocery store in the 50s. There was an old house there, long gone. Detective there dug this buckle up, and it said "Gott mit uns," which is "God is with us," which I knew that was a Nazi thing, right? If you look at World War II buckle, it said "Gott mit uns." But I'm looking at the "Gott mit uns," and there is no swastika. There, instead of a swastika, is a crown. And so, you come home, what was this? You do your research, send the photos, measurements to someone in Germany, and he's like, yeah, that's 1850 to 52 Prussian military buckle. They could identify it by the diameter of that medallion in the center. So, but yeah, how did that get into Tomball, Texas in a grocery store parking lot, basically?
That's pretty cool.
You can't even explain that, right?
Just one of those things. And
but that has a backstory. The further I researched the property, there was a rumor that the fellow that owned this property in that area was a World War II Nazi. So the thought process is that, maybe he bought it with, was his relatives or, something.
Right.
But that fellow, you do more and more research. That's what I love research. And you find out the guy disappeared in the 50s and was never seen again. So those things are just fun to research.
With all these great finds in your bag, what's on top of your bucket list right now?
Man, I don't really have a bucket list. It's like every time I find something, I realize, that was on my bucket list. I cross it off. So I'll take anything, It's just, I just love it so much to find. I love stuff that you find that you can't identify while you're out there, right? And then you post it on the internet or ask a friend, and they know immediately. That's so neat. The amount of knowledge that we all collectively have is really, really neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, especially like some of the ID Me Facebook pages and things like that. You find something, you post it there, and within minutes somebody's giving you an idea on it. It's just like beats having to pull out some encyclopedias and
and then I think I really didn't need to know what that was, because now that's in my mind, right? It's like, how many little trinkets and things are you going to put in your knowledge base?
Yeah, and it's good. I go to these sites on a daily basis, even if I'm not contributing. It just helps me learn. So next time I might find something, I have an idea of what it is.
Sure,
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
So
if there was one place you wish you could detect that's been off limits, where would you detect?
Oh boy, one place. Oh gosh, I'd probably say the White House or something like that.
That was my answer too.
Yeah, mine as well.
I've often thought of the amount of dignitaries and people and events they've had there. Just what is there?
Can you imagine if they
that'd be cool.
Can you imagine if they pulled up all that concrete around the Alamo too?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
It's funny. My dad lives not too far outside of San Antonio. And a few years when I visited him, we went to the Alamo, and I had never seen it in person. I was like, wait a minute. It's this little thing inside of these giant office buildings. What happened?
Actually, it's really cool. I don't know if you know, but the biggest private collector of Alamo relics and memorabilia was Phil Collins of Genesis.
Oh, really?
And a few years ago, he donated his whole collection back to the state, and they're revamping the Alamo, actually building a museum around his collection.
Wow.
But really interesting to know what that guy had collected. And he actually did get to do some detecting on site and did find some neat stuff.
Very interesting. Yeah, well, listen, Don, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We love learning about the genesis of detecting doodads and your other skills and hobbies. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, thank you again very much for having me on.
Yes, and how could people get a hold of you and check out your merchandise?
The best way is through the website. It's Detecting Doodads, DOODADS.com, and you can contact me through there or look me up on Facebook. It's just Don Botting. I do have a Detecting Doodad page on Facebook, but it's not very active.
Yeah, and I purchased your headphones, your newer headphones for the Deus, and I like them. I really do. Very comfortable, and they sound great.
Yeah, I have now 2 versions. I did just release a full over-the-ear version, which I incorporated a 1/4-inch audio jack, so you can use it for the XP or any wired machine. And they're doing really well. I had those replaceable earmuffs for those. I have memory foam, velour, leather, so you can kind of customize how you want them to feel. And the fact that you have 2 different audio sources, the XP puck or a wired, the kind of, a good pair to keep in your truck. So if someone forgets their headphones, you have, fit anything.
Yeah, it's great. I'm excited to see what you guys come out with next.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate the time and good luck.
We'll see you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
Check us out online at xpdeus-usa.com.
If you are needing the highest quality digging tool for metal detecting, then check out Predator Tools. Their digging tools are made from chromoly 4130 and heat treated and tempered to ensure the highest quality product. Predator tools are made in the USA and are also used in the United States military. All of their tools carry a 5-year warranty and are proven to be the toughest out there. So check out Predator Tools at predatortools.com. We'd like to welcome Mary Shafer to our show. Mary is a freelance writer, a traveler, and author of historic nonfiction and how-to books, like the famous Metal Detecting for Beginners. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I want to tell a little story about how I met Mary. The first and only time. I was out metal detecting in, somewhere out in central New Jersey. And we were on a beautiful property. It was an old church that a family had bought, and they're in the process, or at the time we were in the process of converting it into a residential home. And, Mary pulled over and got out and started talking to me about detecting. And I said, oh, this person sounds like she knows what she's talking about. And then when she told me her name, I was like, oh, yeah, I think I know her from Facebook. So it was really great to meet you in person. And we've kind of been chatting since.
Yep. Same here. I thought it was fantastic to get to meet you, too.
So you're from the Pennsylvania area, and you're currently not residing there, and you've been touring the U.S. along with your cat and your RV. Where are you located right now?
I am currently in a tiny little town called Arley, Alabama. I'm just a little bit northwest of Birmingham.
Oh, excellent. And this sounds like a really exciting adventure. I believe you sold your home and you packed up everything and decided to go mobile. What prompted that decision?
Well, a lot of things. I think everything comes together at certain points of your life for whatever reason. And for me, I had always really wanted to see more of America. And I had never been really in a position where I could travel and do that. And so what I did was start thinking about it, and I realized, well, Mary, you're not getting any younger. And, at that time when I got serious about it, I was 56, and I said, how long are you going to wait? And what really prompted this, and this is kind of ironic, is I had originally it was a couple years ago, I had gone down to Maryland and also down to Georgia to meet with Butch at American Digger magazine. I'm on the staff there, and I started thinking how nice it would be, because he kept saying, well, I'm going to go to this hunt and I'm going to go to that dig. You want to come? And I'm like, yeah, I can't. So that was very frustrating. And I thought, maybe I should just get myself a pop-up camper that my Jeep can pull, and then, I could go to these places without having to spend an arm and a leg on, a hotel and fancy meals. I can just cook in my trailer. And when I did that, I started looking for pop-ups online, because I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And of course, you do one thing and the next thing follows and something pops up. And the next thing I know, I'm watching YouTube videos of this guy who lives full time in a pop-up, which, by the way, at this point in my life, I think is insane. I would never live full time in a pop-up. But it was one thing led to another. And I thought, I'm not getting any younger. I better do this now while I'm still young and healthy enough to enjoy it. And I thought the other thing that was cool, and I talked to Butch about this, was that I could, check out different digging spots along the way and write stories about them. So, that's kind of what I'm doing on this half of my trip. I'm actually on my way back from the desert Southwest where I spent the winter, because that was my other really big thing is after this last year in Pennsylvania, which was essentially like the 40 days and 40 nights, I couldn't take any more of the rain. I just could not. And I went down to the sunny Arizona and I thought I've arrived in heaven. And but I miss Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania. It's my home state. It took me 30 years to get back there after my parents kidnapped me when I was little. So yeah, I'd like to stay, but right now I want to see a little more of the world. And so what I did was, the first half of this was about learning how to live in an RV full time, and it's challenging. Let me tell you, it's not always a picnic, but it is fun and it's worth the hard stuff. But I decided that on my road back, I was going to do some detecting. And so, in fact, where I was the last 4 days up until yesterday, I was down in Mobile hunting with a gal that I met on Facebook on the Women Diggers page, and we had a blast. And it was like 3 solid days of digging, which I haven't done in forever. And my body is yelling at me now, but boy, I had fun doing it. And then I'm working right now because I do still have to earn a living on the road. And then in a couple days, I'm going to be leaving for Huntsville, where I'm going to hunt with Anita Jackson. And then I'm going up towards Nashville and I'm going to hunt with Whit Hill. And, I was hoping I could hunt with a couple of other guys on the way up here, but I don't think we're going to have time to get together because I just have to work. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that next fall, when I go out to the Southwest again, this time I'm going to try really hard to do some boondocking out on the claims that are owned by the GPAA, or leased, I should say, and do some actual gold prospecting. But we'll see.
Oh, that sounds fun.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh,
yeah.
So how long do you plan on living the RV lifestyle?
I thought I'd give it 5 years and see how I like it.
That's a longer commitment than I would make to something to see how I like it. So good for you, but it does sound like you like it.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. Up until mid-December, I thought, yeah, I'm going to finish out this trip and then that's it. But then I got solar installed so that I didn't have to have electrical hookups all the time. And I went out in the desert for the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, which is could be a whole show in itself, but it's basically a whole event. It's a 10-day event for people who want to learn how to live in their RVs full time. And I went to that and I did learn that. And by the time I was done, I got back into Phoenix and I realized, man, I really basically just spent a month in the desert living on my own. And it felt really cool. It was a really great feeling of accomplishment, and it really boosted my confidence in my ability to live this lifestyle. And now it's weird. I actually thought by this time I would be really homesick and looking forward to rolling back into PA. But right now, what I'm hearing on the weather, I'm not looking forward to it at all. Everybody's still getting rain.
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey. It's coming.
Yeah, but I will say that I do miss the relic digging that is abundant there. Mm-hmm. As you know, in our area, it's just great. And it was nice, and it is nice still to be down here in the South, because I know when I go to Anita's, she's going to take me to some of her Civil War spots, which of course we don't have.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that too.
And you started to touch on this a little bit before, but, writing while on the road, are you going to plan a book either on metal detecting adventures while traveling, or how to live the RV lifestyle? I'm sure you've got something, at least one thing reserved in the tank. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, that's been my plan before I even left. I thought, having read a couple of books on this topic, I knew that not everything that needs to be said has been said, and there's a lot of angles you can come at it, from. There are 2 books out right now by women who are solo RVers, and they've put out how to live on the road like that. And mine's going to be kind of along those lines. But I'm trying to figure out how I can, have a more unique angle on it. So, but yeah, that's going to be like a how-to kind of a service piece. And then my second one is going to take me a few more years to do, which is going to be kind of like a personal memoir, my version of like Liz Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love, because I've definitely gone through a couple of really big changes in my life in the last 5 years. You know, in 2014, I lost my cat, my dad, a 15-year relationship, and my house inside of 3 months. And that was a big, big, big change. And I kind of think that was the beginning of, you know, where I got to the point where I wanted to do this, what I'm doing right now, because, you know, I just, for the first time in my life, didn't really feel like I was moving forward or toward anything, or at least anything positive. And I just didn't want to keep being in that spot. And I know sometimes just changing your venue is can get you out of that inertia, because that, for a creative person, inertia is just deadly. And I'm hyper aware of that.
Oh, yeah. So what influenced you to pursue writing as a profession?
Well, this is kind of funny. My whole family are writers. My mother was a poet. My dad was a newspaper reporter who turned into an advertising copywriter. My brother was a sports reporter, and my sister is a freelance writer like I am. And I actually did not start my career as a writer. I started my career as a graphic designer illustrator, and I stayed in that for about 25 years. I originally just wanted to be an illustrator, but then I found out that in order to really do well in that field, you kind of have to do the same picture or the same style over and over again. And I thought, well, I'll die of boredom in the first year. So that wasn't going to happen. So I did the next closest thing, which was graphic design. I did that for 25 years, and I just got bored with it. And I realized at some point that, you know, I was an adequate designer, but I would never be an excellent designer. And I don't know anyone who wants their life to be about the pursuit of adequacy. So I started thinking, you know, what else could I do that I'm actually really good at? And all I could think back on was, you know, I've written all my life. No matter what else I was doing, I've been a writer. I started earlier than high school. I was on my middle school newspaper. I was in my high school newspaper. And then even after I graduated from college, I actually went back to school as a teacher and taught at my alma mater, and part of what I taught was copywriting. And I thought, well, this is just ridiculous. This is really what I should be doing. And boy, as soon as I made that decision, it was like jumping in the stream with the current instead of swimming against it all the time, and my life instantly got easier and more fulfilling. And from there, I went into books, you know, kind of as a sideline, which it still is. But it's becoming more of a part of what I do. And then with the internet, I'm really thankful because it's a constant need for new content. So I'm not ever going to run out of work, although I am in the process right now of trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up, because I'm bored with what I've been doing. I've been doing advertising copywriting now for 20 years, and I'm a Gemini. I got to move on and try new things. And I think this was a way of leveraging all of my skill set. You know, the writing, the drawing, the metal detecting. In fact, that you asked about that. I did make a decision on my way up here that I'm going to start getting really serious about my Detecting 101 website, because I've started actually getting some pretty serious inquiries from people, you know, who really want to know more. And, you know, they're not looking to buy a book, but they'd really like, you know, for you to talk to them a little bit or consult with them or whatever. And I thought, you know, I really need to get serious about the blog and all that stuff. And as someone who lives on the road, I really need to have a way to make money that isn't location specific. And monetizing a blog is a very good way to do that. And so, yeah, I'm probably going to be doing that.
It sounds like you're perfectly set up, so I'm very happy for you about that. And your love and talent for writing kind of meshed nicely with your love and talent for metal detecting. So I imagine that was not a way out there kind of motivation for you to write metal detecting for beginners. Was it just a natural thing? Like, I'm a writer, I'm a detector, I'm going to write this book? Well,
yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it just like that. I actually, my best digging buddy is DJ Yost, who I think pretty much everybody in the hobby knows. And he started bugging me about it. He's like, Mary, you can write, and you know, you've learned, you're 12 years into it. I think you can safely consider yourself at least an intermediate person by now. He said, you should write this stuff before you forget what it was like to be a beginner. And I thought, you know, you're right. And I had mentioned it to him years before, and he's like, when are you going to write that book? When are you going to write that book? So finally I just buckled down and did it. And, you know, by the time I really sat down and just really cranked it out, it took me like 2 months. And I'll tell you, that book, of every other book that I've written, I mean, before that I had my book about the Delaware River flood of 1955. 1995. That had been my bestseller, but it took me 15 years to sell 10,000 copies. And in the first year and a half of having this one, I sold like 8, which is insane for an independent published book.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think part of it is what really meshes for me is my writing ability and my marketing knowledge and experience, because I can identify a market that needs a product. And it was so clear to me as part of that market that people really needed a book for beginners that wasn't this comprehensive Bible. I mean, you've seen the Bible. It's great. It's comprehensive. It's deep. But, how many people want to sit there and wade through a 300-page tome before they get out and swing their detector?
Right.
Everybody I know goes and wants to get out there right away and just get out in the field and start finding stuff. So what I decided to do was fill that market niche, which was, I started as a quick start guide is what I call them. And I, shorthand, I tell people, if you sit down and start reading this stuff with your cereal in the morning, you'll be out hunting productively by noon. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that people say that's a very accurate way to describe the book. And I did finally, about a month ago, start outlining number 2 in the series. And it's going to be called More Metal Detecting for Beginners, Digging Deeper. And that's what I know about it right now. So
okay.
I'm in the process of figuring out, what all the content needs to be. And it's kind of tricky because, a second book for beginners, that addresses a lot of different people at a lot of different places in their experience and their practice and development.
So the book contains 101 things you wish you would know when you started the hobby. What are some of the bigger things that today's newbies should really pay attention to?
Well, there's stuff that you should know, and then there's stuff that you want to know. I know one of the big things for me was I always felt really left out when I was with a group of other diggers and they would throw around all the jargon, every single thing that you can imagine, sieve and then all the new jargon that has come in from the TV shows. And I just felt like, what's clad, And so the first thing I put in the book was a glossary. And that has been one of the most popular parts of the book, second only to the section on finding places to hunt, which I don't think would surprise anybody. And those are the 2 biggest ones that people, and then of course there's always, which machine should I get? And you're like, yeah, do you have some time? Because we're going to sit down and talk about this one. There's no pat answer for that. Where do you live? What kind of hunting do you want to do? How often are you going to get out? What's your budget? That kind of thing. What's your temperament and your patience with mechanical things and learning new stuff and yada, yada, as you go. And one thing that's making it more difficult at this point to answer that question is the machines that are coming out now that I would really consider more advanced machines, but they're being marketed to beginners because even though there's a lot to know, there's an easy enough way to use them that you really can, the onboarding process is pretty easy and you can actually get out there and be productive even as a beginner, just, doing the turn on and go and don't fool with any of the settings. You can still find stuff. And that didn't used to be the case, even when I started. I started with a Garrett Ace 250. Well, I had an Ace 100 before that, but I really don't consider that a serious machine. But the 250, I hunted for 7 years with that and found most of my best stuff. And, it was a long learning curve, even for that simple machine.
Yeah, it's amazing, the technology now and how it's helping us. And, if you do want to tinker it with settings, you've got even more options on what you can do. And even for those of us who've been detecting for many, many years, there's still stuff to learn. So I know your book is focused on beginners, and your next one, Digging Deeper, will be maybe the next level up. What are some of the mistakes or things you think some of the more seasoned hobbyists could learn or don't pay attention to?
That's interesting because I was just talking about that with my friend that I was digging with this last week. And one of the things we came back to again and again is how as you get more experience and you have a higher, I don't want to say a higher value machine, but more of a more capable machine, we all tend to start cherry picking. We've got all those settings and we're not going to dig that 14 because we know it's a foil when in fact it's actually a gold wedding band. We start cherry picking and we miss a lot of good stuff. In fact, Barbara that I was hunting with we were in the water down in Mobile Bay, and she was hunting and got a signal. And she said, I was certain it was a fishing weight, lead fishing weight. And it ended up being a ring. It was a cheap ring, but it was a ring nonetheless. And she was really excited, and it was very exciting. And she said, in another time I wouldn't have dug that. But she goes, I've just been finding so much stuff that surprises me with this machine. And I said, well, I noticed that when I first started, and I didn't have anyone to tell me this, like this is why I wrote my book. I wanted people to not struggle like I did. But the one thing I knew was if I'm going to learn how this works, I'm going to have to dig every sound that I hear. And I did. Mm-hmm. And of course, I dug a lot of crap, but I also dug a lot of cool things. And in fact, I dug a lot more cool things than I dig now because I'm as guilty as anybody else of cherry picking. If I'm on a site that I know I'm only going to get to be on for a day, I'm going to go for the good signals. But, I do sometimes now, if I've got a permission where I'm allowed to go back again and again, I start just digging everything because you just don't know. As good as any machine might be, and yes, they're getting better. They're getting way better at discriminating and identifying, but they'll still fool you once in a while. I mean, I had a quarter standing on its side that gave me a bottle cap reading. And I thought there was just something about the sound of it. And I dug it, and I was really glad I did. And I realized that one of the things, too, that I think the more experienced digger trap that we fall into is that we start depending too much on the VDI, which is still a really kind of young technology compared to the tones. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking several times how glad I was that I learned on a machine that didn't have VDI. I had to learn tonal discrimination. So it was like learning my machine. I learned what its language was. I knew what it was saying to me, and I didn't have a VDI to fall back on. So if I would, run my coil over the target and I would hear kind of a crackly noise on either side of that, I knew it was probably a bottle cap. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure it has to do with the shape of it. But, if I would have just been depending on VDI all the time, I would have thought it was a nickel, Mm-hmm. And I would dig it anyway because I was learning my machine. But, that's kind of what I'm saying. So I think what we do is we tend to get lazy, I guess would be the overall way to describe it. And we let the technology decide things for us that we should probably be a little more proactive in deciding for ourselves. I think we miss good targets that way.
You're right. I agree. Can you tell us some about your other how-to and historic nonfiction books? I know you got quite a few, right?
Not too many. Like I have more nonfiction. What my really big thing is historical nonfiction. So, like I said, I have my biggest bestseller before the metal detecting book it's called Devastation on the Delaware. And that's a documentary, and it's the only existing documentary on the flood of 1955 in the Delaware Valley that was caused by Hurricane Diane. And I wrote that because I'm really a big weather weenie, and I'm really amazed and obsessed with extreme weather. In fact, where I am right now, I'm camped down by Birmingham and Tuscaloosa with my original intent was to go down there and do some research on the tornado outbreak of 2011. And I'm not going to end up being able to do that because I've got some jobs that are due. But yeah, that's a big reason I wanted to do this trip was so I could go research all these cool weather events and write it off as a business trip, because it's all research for a legit book.
Probably headed
and
to
then
my
I have
hometown.
a book called Almost Perfect, Disabled Pets and the People Who Love Them, because at one point I had 4 cats and they were all disabled, and I got really tired of people going, oh, poor Idgie or poor Weaver or whatever. I'm like, no, they're not poor, they're just different. And so I got a bunch of other people that I knew probably were having the same issue, and I knew that people would read it because I knew I would read it, and I knew a bunch of people would read it. And in publishing, conventional wisdom says if there's no book like the one you're planning, don't even bother doing it because there's no readership for it, and that's why no one else is doing it. And I said, bogus. I know somebody would read this book, but because I didn't know how big the market would be, it just was a little small book, a little bit larger than the one for metal detecting. But it ended up being the first independently published book that ever got reviewed in Publishers Weekly, and it got really good reviews, and we sold a lot of copies. So that was pretty nice. And then my first 2 books were, my first one was Wisconsin, The Way We Were, and that's about the first century of statehood. And then I have one called Rural America, A Pictorial Folk Memory, which is basically an essay about agrarian America before the Industrial Revolution. And then I got a couple of other books that are anthologies that my work is in, but I didn't publish them or write them.
It's funny when I was doing some research for our interview tonight, and I was going through your website, and I saw Almost Perfect. it tugged at my heartstrings because I'm an animal lover. I used to volunteer at a animal shelter, and so I was like, oh, that seems like such a fantastic book. So thank you for writing that.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. I got to tell you, there's a lot of people out on the road here who travel in their RVs with pets, and I've sold a lot of those books out here.
So you've done quite a lot of speaking engagements, whether it's about the books you've written or tips for writers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like getting out in the public and to discuss your trade and passion?
I do. I love it. I love public speaking. I think it's because I love to teach. I like sharing information with people that they're interested in that they didn't know about, and that kind of public speaking. And that's what I do when I talk about my books. And of course, I basically do it because by the time I've got people revved up about it, they want to buy the book, and that helps me. So I sell those at the back of the room, but I also teach. I teach writing, and I teach drawing, and I teach metal detecting. In our local community schools, I've been teaching metal detecting, and my first couple classes I actually filled, which I had never done with any of my other subjects, which was pretty cool. And it ended up, I had a couple of students who have been really cool and invited me to go hunt permissions with them, as long as I'll give them like tutorials, and it works out really nice because I can give them one-on-one attention and they can learn more, and I can go hunt a new permission. So it works out really great. And the best part of that I love is that, I can kind of teach them how to read the ground and how to take a look at something and imagine where the most human activity might have been, that somebody would have had the opportunity to drop something. And, because a lot of people, the first thing they want to do is just go out into the big wide open spaces and start swinging. And I'm like, well, that might not be where people have, necessarily spent the most time. And you can't find what was never dropped. And you realize how little they actually think about that. And then they start to think about it, and you see the light bulb go on. And I love that. That's my favorite part of teaching. It's like teaching someone to read. You've given them a gift no one can ever take away.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? If nobody was there, just because nobody's there now doesn't mean nobody. It could mean that somebody wasn't there long ago. So You're right. The occupied places are the best places to go. How long have you been detecting, and what got you started?
I've been detecting since 2004. I actually got my first machine in 2001, but I got so frustrated with it because, like I said, it was an Ace 100, which it's kind of a toy, really. And I had absolutely no one to help me. I knew no one who detected. This was way before Facebook, and it was really even before most of the forums before Facebook. So I just was like, I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. And I went out and tried like 2 or 3 times, and I got so frustrated, I just threw it in a closet and forgot about it for 3 years. And then finally, about 3 years later, I really, really still wanted to detect. I think I originally saw an article about it in a magazine somewhere. Or I don't know what. I just don't remember. But it still hung on. And so 3 years later, I got it out again and thought, man, I'd really like to learn how to use this. And by that time, there were several popular forums. And I went to 2 of them, but the one that really lasts in my mind was called Treasure Time. And it was a literal forum where, it had all these different categories and all these different topics, and it had a guy who owned it, and it was really fun for a long time. And then people started kind of defecting over to Facebook, and this guy got personally offended and felt like everybody was deserting him, so he just shut the whole thing down. But before that happened, I ended up going in there, and I met a gal who was, first of all, I was so happy to find another gal doing this, and she was really like welcoming and friendly, and she said, hey, we have a little informal club down, near where we live, and we all get together, and we're about to have a hunt. Would you like to come down? And I was like, yes, I was so excited to actually meet other people that did this and get to work with them and see how they did it. And that was the beginning for me. That was the weekend I fell in absolute head over heels love with this hobby. And her husband, I'm talking about Ricky Montoro, and her husband, Joe, they live down near Coatesville. And they were actually having a memorial hunt for a member of their group who had just passed away. And so because I have a background in commercial art, I arranged and made, I designed and made T-shirts for it. So I felt like I could contribute something, and we just ended up having a blast. And Ricky's husband, Joe, is one of the most knowledgeable people. Most people have no idea who he is, but that guy knows everything. He's very humble about it, but if you ask, he will share with you anything you want to know. And he really upped my game. And then probably within about a year of that, I got on Facebook and I met DJ. I don't even, again, remember exactly how that worked, but I realized he lived just 45 minutes away from me up in Nazareth, and we started getting together. I had a 1850s farmhouse, so we hunted that thing for 12 years,
I bet.
and it's only now really starting to not give up much, but I don't know. I haven't been back there after the winter. So every year it was like hunting a new yard after it pushed some new stuff to the surface. But yeah, that was essentially how I got into it. And then after that, it was just doing it at every turn. And, I progressed in it a lot slower than most people because I work a lot. I don't have an employee. I'm self-employed. So when I don't work, the work doesn't get done. And that means, I have to work a lot. So I don't have a lot of time to get out there. But boy, every time I had a chance, I was out there hunting.
So let me ask you a question. If you were able to metal detect anywhere that's been off limits to metal detecting, where would you be?
Fredericksburg, Virginia.
I think that's a good one.
Virginia. Partly because I actually am in the process of writing a book that opens on the battlefield of First Fredericksburg, which was December 11th through the 13th, I believe, 1862. And that battle was so hot for so long. There has to be a bazillion slugs in the ground, not to mention everything else. And because I appreciated the resources that they provided for me to research that when I was researching my book, which I'm still working on, I was so happy, and thankful to have that resource that I joined the Civil War Preservation Society, and they had a fund drive because they wanted to buy more of the battlefield. And I remembered when I had been down there, standing up on Marie's Height, looking down at this, the battlefield that I knew that those waves of blue had come across and just been mowed down. But then I just shifted a little to the left and I saw a subdivision built most of the way up the hill, and it kind of turned my stomach. You know what I mean? I mean, this is, to me, sacred ground. These people fought and died here, and somebody built a subdivision on top of their grave. And I don't know, it did something to me. So when they had this fund drive, I contributed enough to it that I got my name on an honor roll for people who help preserve the battlefield down there. And I guess I'd really like to have the chance to hunt that.
Doing your research for doing some of your books, does this ever lead you to permissions for places to metal detect?
Yeah, it does. Mostly I'm not thinking about that all the time. I guess I'm always curious about history, whether I'm writing a book about it or not. But yes, there have been a few times when I've been out, especially for when I had my flood book and I was researching that. That was back in the very, very early part. I mean, I was researching that book from 2002 to 2004. So it was right in the beginning of when I was starting. And because I was just starting, my mind was very much on, I mean, at first I never even thought about permissions. I was just hunting my own yard and I thought that's all I would ever need. But then I started hearing these, there's a story that a guy told me, and actually has been corroborated by several people, that there was a train coming down from, I believe, Granton, and it was headed down towards the Stroudsburgs, and it went through the Naog Tunnel right about the time that the flood came through there, and it pushed the engine and all the cars right off the tracks. And theoretically, I don't know if this is true, but theoretically, it's still laying down in there somewhere. And more than one person says that there had been a payroll box on board that train that has never been recovered. And whenever I hear that kind of thing, it's never been recovered, I think, by anybody that's going to tell anybody about it.
Right.
If I would recover something like that, I wouldn't tell anybody, because then old Uncle Sam gets his fingers and everything. No, keep it to yourself.
Well, Mary, I got to say, you've got a very exciting and interesting life, and thank you so much for sharing it with us. I would like
I really appreciate your interest.
Cool. Yeah, and I would like to encourage everybody who's listening right now to check out your website, which is Mary Shafer, that's SHAFER.com, for more information about you, all your books, speaking engagements, and everything on there. It's a great website and a great resource. And you also have a Detecting 101 website, which is detecting101.com. That's fairly easy to remember. And you have a Facebook group, right? Metal Detecting 101 and Treasure Hunting for Beginners.
Right. And in fact, that Facebook page just last week passed 4,000 likes. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, Detecting 101, I would encourage people to keep your eyes on that, because in the next few months, that thing is really going to blossom. There's going to be a lot more content on there. I'm right now reviewing 2 new shovels from Lachey, which are killer. Oh my God, we had those down this weekend, and the long handle digger I was using just has this really unique belly on it that just really just takes a chunk out of the, for the plug, but it stays together and holds really nice. I was very impressed with it. I already dig with one of their diggers, but man, this one just amazing, really amazing. And then they've got a new hand digger that was, the design is actually from the original that was from the Army in the desert. So it can really cut through the more sandy kind of soil. And again, it just performed marvelously. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to get to ask you to, to review stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was really great talking to you. And if you ever find yourself in Moore, Oklahoma, doing some research on tornadoes, look me up and I'll go detecting with you.
Is that where you are?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I might be in Moore this fall.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right, I will take you up on that. Guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate the time and the space.
Thanks, Mary, and we hope you join us again, because I feel like we have hours and hours of stuff to talk about. So we'd like to have you on again, maybe in a few months.
All right.
Fantastic. Call me anytime.
All right, we'll see.
Thanks, Mary.
If you have a question for one of our guests or just like to make a comment, call us at our XP Team USA podcast hotline at 405-294-3602.
All right. Well, that was Mary Shafer, and it was really fun talking with Mary.
Yeah, I learned so much from her, and I hope I do get the opportunity to meet up with her again when she's back in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah, and she mentioned maybe she'd be going through Oklahoma, and maybe I'll get the chance to go out and hunt with her.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And hopefully there won't be any tornadoes, but if there are, you can go storm chasing with her too.
I've been very close to one, so I tried chasing one when I was younger, my early 20s, and I got way too close.
Yeah, better stay safe away from that. Sure.
Well, that was our show for today, and May 17th will be our next show, and be listening next week on May 11th, and we'll be having live feeds on Facebook and live podcasts at Detect the Heartland.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again to our guests. For more on Mary, just visit maryshafer.com or detecting101.com. And also on Don Botting and Detecting Doodads. That's an easy one to remember, detectingdoodads.com.
All right, well, we'll see you.
Take care.
Get that permission, put the coil to the soil, and we'll see you next time right here on the XP Team USA podcast.